All right, and just want to remind you that we will upload our conversations and this sharing to the YouTube channels. During the course of conversations, should you have any questions for our speaker, please type it in the chat, and we will have time for Q&A later on in between or in the end of the session for further discussions. So over to you, Janissa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to pull out my screen. Just give me a second. Please shout if you don't see it. Can you guys nod if you see my screen? Perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining me. Honestly, I was like, I think everybody talks about sustainability, but I don't know how many people will tune in on a Tuesday morning to really talk about how we can work through the issues. So I really appreciate your time kind of working through this. I am here because I am part of a group of PR professionals based in Singapore, actually across the region, that are working on the issues. So, well, I appreciate for the next hour or so that you'll be spending here on this call with me. And as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to go on video. I really like to kind of like, it'll be really nice to kind of see people in the same room as me, even though it's virtual. So I just thought that I would just give a quick introduction into who I am and what I do and why I'm talking to you. I just want to say that also, please, I'll try to make it as interactive as possible. Please put in comments into the chat if you have any questions at any point in time, and we'll definitely get to it. So a brief introduction of me in 3 pictures or logos. Firstly, I'm a senior account director with Spurwing Communications. We are a public relations agency based in Singapore, covering the region. We specialize working with businesses in healthcare, food, and agriculture. So this is an industry that I work a lot in, and some of we have worked. Some of you guys on the call we've worked together as well. As I mentioned earlier, I also chair a sustainability working group as part of what we call PRCA Asia Pacific. So that's the Public Relations Communications Association. It's an industry group for the PR industry, and it's a group that addresses a range of issues. There are different working groups on diversity, for example, and a few of us are working on sustainability. So I'll get more into what we do later, but yeah, this is very much part of what we are coming together as an industry to address. And finally, I am having an oat latte for breakfast. So true to this being a WOMAG coffee, I think I would really kind of want to know, who's on the call with me. So if you guys can do it, could you try to open the chat function? It's right at the bottom of your screens, I believe. And then just tell me first, give me 2 words or 2 phrases. Firstly, what you do, and secondly, what did you have for breakfast, or what are you having for breakfast? Just 2 words. And I'm just going to open the chat to take a look at this. Sangeeta is also in PR, having an ice poker. Well done, Sangeeta. A big hello to Kate Burton. Welcome back to Singapore. Although Susan, I love how healthy your breakfast is. You know what I love? So what I'm seeing here is, coffee, smoothies, and actually people from a range of industries and different specialties, which I love. I love seeing this response. Well, I love this, and welcome everybody. So really nice to have this breakfast chat with you guys. I'm just going to close the comments. Later we'll have polls, and yeah, please use this, put in questions at any point in time. Right, so I'm just going to move on. So I just wanted to kind of give you a promise. The next hour that we spend together, these are 3 questions that I hope we can answer together, and that you will walk away with. Firstly, why should we care about greenwashing? And what are the different forms of greenwashing around us? And actually the most important thing, and if there's one thing you take away, I hope it's going to be number 3, how can we be a part of the solution, either as individuals or working professionals in an industry that can be a huge part of the solution to this issue. But I was thinking that I cannot sit here and talk to you about sustainability, ESG, and greenwashing if I don't put a reminder for why are we doing this in the first place. Can anyone tell me, go and unmute yourself, tell me, what do you think this is? It is not a background. Has anyone seen this? Can you nod your head or shake your head? I just need to get a sense. Have you seen it? So looks nice, but not a background. It's actually a climate heat map. It's that tracks global warming or average temperatures around the world from the 1850s all the way to the present day. So as you can tell, I don't have to explain to you the left side of the screen. That's the temperature, I guess, over a century ago. So what this really tells us visually is you can see how much the Earth has warmed up very rapidly in the very recent, last decades, last 2 to 3 decades or so. And this is the problem. And so the point I'm trying to make is, we are coming together to address some of the big issues. You don't even have to look at this heat map. Just open your latest news app, look around us. All of us are impacted by climate change in one way or another. I'm reading about droughts in China, floods in Pakistan. So it's this industry for agriculture, this industry is also, the impacts are tangible. And this is also the reason why we are coming together to address, whether it's individuals, corporates, whether you're in a government or policymaker, what can we do to address climate change? Because it's very much part of the issue. On the other side of the coin, the graph that you see here is the loss of nature and biodiversity. So in the last 50 years alone, we have lost 2/3 of all biodiversity on Earth. And, I guess we see graphs all the time, but just to give you a sense of how significant this is the highest rate of species loss that Earth has ever seen in the last 10 million years. So even though there was biodiversity loss in the Jurassic era as well, at this point in time where we are seeing unprecedented loss of biodiversity. And the greatest driver of biodiversity loss and what the science tells us is our global food systems are the top driver, not climate change, not pollution, not any other, but our global food systems and human activity are a big part of biodiversity loss. And of course, this is because populations are growing, we need to feed, we need to make sure that people are fed and have access to good nutrition. On the other hand, this is coming at an expense to nature and biodiversity. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage for why this matters and actually why there is so much pressure that we see as consumers. You are in a business, you see that as well, what everybody is talking about sustainability, because we are realizing that human actions, global food systems, emissions, these are all contributing to impacts on nature around us, and this comes at a cost. So everybody's talking about sustainability. If you look at worldwide news searches on sustainability, it's really grown up. And also 75% of consumers, that's you and me, also want to be a part of the solution. So, if we all, I'm sure at some point are thinking, how can I be more sustainable? How can I help others become more sustainable as well? So this pressure that we are seeing from consumers is also translating a lot to businesses. We all have worked with one business or another, and we are seeing businesses come under intense pressure from their investors, their customers, to be accountable for what they're doing on sustainability. But what's happening is because of this intense pressure, everybody's talking about sustainability. We are seeing, you cannot open a newspaper or load any news page without seeing a headline about that. But what this is creating is, I guess, some noise and confusion. So I'm just gonna put this image on the screen here. All of us at any point in time walking into a shopping mall will probably see either of these images, whether you are in a departmental store or a supermarket. We are inundated with a range of products. And in that moment, we face a range of purchase decisions, right? And most of it is probably instinct driven, like I'm hungry, I want a packet of cup noodles, or this top looks nice. At the same time, you're also thinking, oh, should I be more sustainable? If I'm trying to pick like one sustainable, like instant noodle from, a range of instant noodles on the shelf. How do I do that? So consumers want to be more sustainable. I think businesses are responding, but ultimately it comes down to the fact that we are faced with so many different purchase decisions everywhere we go. So just to give you some stats, if you were in the EU today, if you're in Europe today, 80% of all the non-food commodities or items that you pick up probably have an environment label or two. But is this helping cut through the noise? Let us have the stats speak for themselves. So these are some stats actually from Singapore, from a survey from WWF and Accenture. And yeah, despite all the talk about sustainability, all the information out there on the products, 1 in 3 consumers are actually confused by what they're seeing on the products when they try to make decisions. And a smaller but growing amount, 1 out of 5 consumers actually do not trust any business claims on sustainability. And this is not just with the consumers. You are also seeing, even as more businesses are talking about sustainability, not everyone is buying it. So and actually everything I'm showing you here today, it's probably news from the last 2 to 3 months. So the conversations are still evolving as we speak. Back in June, the DPM Heng Swee Keat, the Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore, went out talking about greenwashing. It was surprising to me. Was one of the first few times that I saw that we've seen senior government leaders come out to really talk about it and address greenwashing as a solution, as a problem in Singapore. Shortly after, in July, Singapore issued guidelines for listed companies when we talk about ESG. And finally, everybody knows who this man is. Does anyone know what he has to do with, what did he say about ESG recently? So a little bit sore about being taken off the list on the S&P 500. Obviously took to Twitter, but literally, Elon Musk tweeted, "ESG is a scam." So we are reading about ESG every day and sustainability, and at the same time, we are seeing regulators, governments, investors, business leaders, all coming out to actually even saying that there's no credibility. What does this all mean? Greenwashing is a real problem. So from a brand or business perspective, if you have somebody sitting here today, what does it mean for businesses? And I think I would argue that increasingly, with the scale of greenwashing going up, or the perceived problem of greenwashing going up, it's no longer just a reputational issue. It's no longer just like people being like, "Oh, why are you saying this?" It's increasingly coming with real material risks for businesses in the form of litigation and regulation. So just to give you some global examples, Client Earth is a volunteer NGO group of activists, and they have won numerous lawsuits against businesses that make false claims on sustainability. Just in May, they launched a lawsuit against Shell for not disclosing climate risks of their operations. At the same time, they also have another lawsuit in the US with Washington Gas, to accusing them of greenwashing through the marketing campaigns. On the regulatory side, this is the SEC in the US. The SEC just recently fined the Bank of New York Mellon also for false or unsubstantiated claims on ESG when they do the reviews. And SEC is not the only one doing it. In Australia, the Australian Securities Exchange has been similarly quite strict about what companies are doing when they talk about sustainability. So fines, lawsuits, regulations, all this is coming down the line for businesses. If we are not looking, and if you are somebody within an organization, these are real risks to watch out for. It's not just reputational risk. I'm gonna pause here and just check the comments. If anyone has questions, I'm gonna address it right now. I see Nemesis. Oh yeah, that's the temperature change. Any questions right here? Please put it on and we'll come to it. Okay, we'll have some time for questions at the end of this. So, oh yeah, so I have a poll for you, time for you to participate. So a little bit of so now I want you to be the jury. for the next 4 case studies. So I'm going to put 4 case studies in front of you. I'm going to tell you about the situation, and I would like if you can then, in a poll later, tell me, rate from 1 to 5, whether you think that is greenwashing. Okay, so 5 being 100% yes, it's greenwashing. 1 being no, not at all. This is legit. And if you're unsure, you can stick to 3. But I would love to see, what you guys think is greenwashing or not. All right, are you ready? So when I'm going to talk to you about a case study first, and then Cindy, I think she'll have to launch the poll. Okay, this is an easy one, a really famous example. Have you guys seen this? Yep, Kate has. So this is a skincare brand in Asia. They launched a marketing campaign saying that now they are being more sustainable, eco-friendly. They are and selling their products in paper bottles. But of course, when you take it apart, it's actually a plastic bottle to hold the product wrapped by paper. So yes, I would love to. We have 6 people answering. Tell me, is this greenwashing? Oh wow. All right, so do I click end poll? I think I can. All right, I'm gonna give it a couple more. So if you haven't clicked, do so. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Yep, do you see the results on the screen? Nope, let me share it. All right, so actually so interesting because it was unanimous, 100% greenwashing at the start. And then I started seeing like some other reactions, and I kind of want to know why. Who can I just ask who puts like either 1 or 2? And can you tell me why did you pick your choice? Anyone wants to volunteer?
Yeah, maybe I can go. So yeah, I mean, because it's the sort of the paper label can easily be removed, and the bottle can be either reused or recycled. I've seen this actually in a couple of, let's say, companies as a kind of a new tactic, especially when it comes to refillable items. So that's why I put 1.
So wow, that's really insightful, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and I think the reason why I think 17 people put 100%, actually I would have as well, is because it's most visually and blatantly, a misleading claim. People expect like, I guess, a paper bottle, but obviously you open it up and it's not. But Dalal, I think that's such a informed and interesting perspective. And yeah, thanks for that. So I'm going to close the poll and move on to the next case study. All right, this, all of us probably encountered this at one point or another. You pick up, this is a coffee bag. You see a sign of something being 100% recyclable. Or you have probably seen this, I'm not a plastic cup, I'm not a paper bag, for a plastic bag, for example, and 100% compostable, 100% biodegradable. So is this greenwashing if you see this on a product? Okay, a few more seconds for the rest of you to make your decisions. It's so interesting because I'm looking at your responses live, and it's so different from the first poll that we did. The first poll was quite, most of you were quite decisive, but right now I was seeing like, things were changing and the bar charts were moving. Okay, I'm just going to, if you just click your answer if you haven't yet, and I'm going to end the poll right now and share the results. Here it is. So yeah, it was probably, I think it was not sure. There were a lot of like not sure at the start. And then, probably to an extent. So I kind of want to hear, does anyone want to share, what number did you, what did you pick and why?
Jan, I went for yes, it's total greenwashing, because yes, the bag is 100% recyclable, but we in Singapore know that 3% I think is the rate for recycling, and so everything else is popped into the incinerator. So companies love to make this claim so that people buy those bags and feel better about themselves, but the reality is something completely different. And when it says I'm not a plastic cup, yes, it might be 100% compostable, but I buried a compostable spoon last year in my garden, and that was over a year ago, and I checked on it about a month ago and it's still there. So it might be compostable over 5 or 10 years, but let's face it, the reality is that Singapore is not going to go and bury all of those I'm not a plastic cup, and it's going to be great for the environment. We want it to be, because that makes us feel better. So they're playing on our vulnerability so that they can still sell what they want to by making these bold claims about sustainability, when the reality is it just ain't so. Certainly, sadly, not in Singapore. That's my thought.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I got time for you. And if you guys haven't heard it already, it's called wish cycling. So the reality is recycling. What works in Singapore might not work somewhere else. What might work in another country might not apply directly to Singapore, because recycling systems are all really local. And yeah, so wish cycling is a term that's coined for, even sometimes I do that. We finish, you finish using a product, and you put it into the bin thinking, okay, I hope this can be recycled where I am, but depending on where you are, sometimes it doesn't. Kate, I also think it's so interesting that you did an experiment with the plastic spoon in your garden. And yeah.
It's interesting, because when I did it, I was so disappointed. And I couldn't remember where I potted it, so I had to dig around for a bit, but it was certainly still there. So, the only way to recycle is just to reduce, isn't it, really? And it's all a huge inconvenient truth. And Jan, you speak so well on this subject, but we all want to do our bit, but only if it works for us. So we can still buy what we want to do and still go in the plane and still go on our holidays, but we're trying to do what we can to mitigate it, where really the only way it's ever going to be addressed properly is if governments take decisive action and they tell us what to do.
Oh gosh, Kate.
Oh, sorry. I'm coming strong this morning, Jan, because I love what you're talking about.
All right, thank you so much, Kate. And also just to go back, products that are compostable and biodegradable, I think these are innovations that are a big necessary part of the solutions where it can work. But the reality is, for a lot of these materials, they degrade under very specific conditions that are probably in a factory or a processing place where it can degrade. So very specific temperatures or even time periods that are not usually found in nature or in our own gardens, for example. All right, third case study. You guys know them. Not if you do or not if you don't. Coldplay are really good in concert, my favorite. But poor Coldplay, they have done a lot. They are still doing a lot on climate change. They actually, I think they were the first, one of the biggest names globally that came out during the pandemic to say that they're going to be addressing their emissions by reducing their touring. So they have partnered, and this is part of the challenge I'm putting in front of you. They have partnered with organizations, businesses that can provide the solution to how can they reduce carbon emissions from their touring schedule. This has unfortunately, resulted in a really sort of a harsh headline. This is The Guardian criticizing their partnerships that they've chosen, even as they look for a solution to reduce the carbon footprint. This is because they have to reduce, to reduce the fuel that they use, or to address the carbon footprint from the fuel that they use when they fly around the world. They partnered with an oil company, Neste, that has also businesses in palm oil. So this issue became really big. Activist groups came after Coldplay. Yep, and I see some of you answering the poll. Separately in the same article, it's not here in the headline, but they were also, they partnered BMW to use electric vehicles, but people also went over the partnership. So, so this is a challenge. celebrities, rock stars, making corporate sustainability claims. But as part of the partnerships, they are working with businesses in oil and gas and transport. Okay, so yeah. So please let me know, is this greenwashing?
They were in concert a couple of weeks ago in London, and quite a few friends went to it, and they tried to do their bit. But my cousin is a air hostess, and she flew them on a private jet. So I don't know how sustainable that is. And they also have the light up bands like your watches, which look amazing at the concert, but they can't be great for the environment, surely. So while they want to do a bit, and they're raising the awareness, it's you can't have your cake and eat it, can you, Jan? What do you think?
Yeah. I think they're really trying, and I feel like the responses reflect that. So majority of you are not sure, or you think it's greenwashing to an extent, and I can see why, because even I'm conflicted, and I was thinking about that as well. All right, this is the last poll and last challenge. Is this greenwashing? In 2020, I believe Shell put out a Twitter climate poll asking people on Twitter to vote, to tell them what are they doing to reduce emissions. So these are all, what you and I can do. They face huge backlash immediately from people that were accusing them of being an oil and gas company, but at the same time, like launching and promoting a Twitter poll. It went, to putting the responsibility on individuals. They got responses from AOC, Greta Thunberg coming after them. And I think shortly, one day after, they had to respond by highlighting, that they are also what they are also doing on the business side. So is this greenwashing? The numbers are coming in. Please click on the poll if you haven't already. Okay, I'm going to end it in a few seconds. So please click, think about it. Interestingly, the responses are mixed. No, actually, we do have a winner. Okay, prepare your answers because I'm really curious and I want to know why. Okay, here it is. I'm sharing. Your answer is not at all. Well, it's mixed across the board, but not at all. So can I ask for anyone that voted for not at all to tell me your, the reasons behind your choice? I want to hear. Anyone in this group? Or maybe put it in the chat. Come talk to, yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting because even putting together the polls, I didn't know, I was thinking it's probably a range. And I think this is my point to you. Just yesterday, I was in a really heated conversation with some partners of ours. And, for anyone sitting in an organization or corporate, it's always a balancing act that we are still trying to get right, or maybe can we even get right? So for people in organizations, the question that we ask ourselves every day is how can we, maybe as the agriculture industry that contributes to climate change, how can we be part of the solutions and the discussions on this issue? On the other hand, we also ask ourselves, if I'm not 100% there, I'm there, I want to do something, but I'm not 100% there. So when am I ready to go out and talk about it? Should I even talk about it if I'm not there? This is a question that I face on a daily basis with the clients that we work with. And I would say it really varies and there isn't a rule book or correct answer on it. And even for the 4 case studies I put in front of you, my point to you is that I'm here talking about greenwashing, but I don't think anyone really understands has a clear idea of what is a solution. Yeah, and it's something that's ongoing. I just also wanted to share, reached out to some of my friends in NGOs and media, and here's what they think greenwashing is. So you have the people that, it ranges. You have the people that talk about, whether greenwashing is about, what do you talk about and what do you promise as a brand or business, or even, looking at the numbers, playing out certain numbers. That is greenwashing, but also it's not just what do you say or not, but it's also how you say something. So for example, like saying that we're doing something to save the planet, some people feel that, you know, it underplays the severity of the issue. So my point is, I don't think if you ask different individuals, they all have different definitions. Probably number one, probably different definitions of sustainability, and different definitions of greenwashing as well. And this really speaks to the range of, you know, different types of greenwashing. If you just do a quick Google, you can probably find, you know, guidelines telling you, you know, what can you do about greenwashing, what are the different types. But, you know, because this is, I get this session, these are my top three, you know, kind of ways that I see businesses inadvertently or intentionally greenwashing. Actually, most of the time is unintentional. So firstly is the making of misleading claims. So pick up a product, you can probably see whether it's a recycling stamp or, you know, a certification stamp, health stamp, you know. So I think we see this all the time. There are a lot of different labels that have claims on sustainability, responsibly produced, organic, the list goes on. So because of that, that's the I don't know, there's confusion, and yeah, and sometimes even like you're using claims or making claims that are unsubstantiated, unsupported, not verified by third parties. That could be it. You know, you're just making a promise, but you know what is behind what you're doing. So Changing Markets is a group of NGOs that call out greenwashing, that expose corporate practices, and this is only this year. Most recently, they found out that 40% of companies globally have made misleading environmental claims. Yeah, and I think it's not just about the labels that you see on products, but also when we use terms like, you know, this is an eco-friendly tote bag or sustainable without really understanding what it is. It can also be a form of greenwashing. Actually, that's the most common form of greenwashing that happens on a daily basis. So as Spurwing Communications, we know that we don't do that. You know, we will not use eco-friendly or make a sustainability claim without then following up with evidence of what it is. The second area is overlooking the areas of your business where most of the impact comes from. Has anyone seen, you know, scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions? It is really technical but this is something that keeps, you know, sustainability executives and CEOs awake at night right now. So now that the conversation on, you know, businesses decarbonizing has become more nuanced and more advanced. You know, previously businesses that say, oh, I'm taking action for climate change, they can say I'm reducing electricity in my building. However, there's a greater recognition now that it's not just about scope 1 or 2 emissions that businesses need to look at, but actually where the carbon footprint is across the supply chain. And for businesses in agriculture, this you know your supply chain. It is the farmers, what happens on the farms, your logistics, the suppliers. This is it. It's about being accountable for what the carbon footprint of all these operations. And this is why research tells us that scope 3 emissions can represent up to 95% of a business's actual carbon impact. And it's also the hardest, or currently the hardest area, because if you're in a business, how do you work with the suppliers? How do you keep them aligned to your promises and your standards? Another thing that I wanted to put on, and you guys have probably seen this, is tree planting as part of CSR activities. All good and well. I love seeing young trees growing in my neighborhood. But you know, the point here is that when businesses say, oh, I'm you know, doing something for the environment, I'm planting trees, that's great. But where is your real environmental footprint for your business, and how are you addressing it? So it's not just about the number of trees you plant, but what you're actually doing to reduce your impact. And then finally, the third area is promoting individual action over systemic change. I think this links a little bit to the Shell example that we saw earlier, and why there was some backlash. Because all issues, as you can tell, it doesn't lie just on the shoulders of consumers. There is a role for businesses, there is a role for governments as well. And truly, because of the complex nature of an issue like climate change or biodiversity loss, sometimes to really address the issue, you need to take a systemic approach. Versus, you know, putting it all on the shoulders of consumers. So this was just 5 days ago, really recent, the Financial Times kind of highlighting how the whole climate conversation is now focusing on individuals and what they're doing without without addressing the, the role of industry. So for example, in Singapore, if you look at Singapore, the carbon footprint of households, I don't remember exactly, but it's around 10%. But if you look at the carbon footprints of industries, the oil and gas industry, transport industry, that's a lot more. So by addressing the carbon footprint of industries, there can be actually a lot more significant impact on overall carbon emissions than just focusing on individuals. I also had to put straws here, love it, because we talked about what are you doing the next time you get bubble tea? Someone was drinking bubble tea, don't use the plastic straw. All well and good, because we all have to do our part. But again, what is our recycling system in Singapore? Or are we even reducing? Can we even change the design of our packaging in one way or another to really reduce the waste that we have in a meaningful way? So these are just my three. If I'm just going to round it up on how can we then be a part of the solution, I feel like we discussed it earlier, but when you're making a claim, really understand what it means. Let's not use big terms loosely. Understanding the material impact of your business, and there are material assessments that you can take to really see where you have to take action in, if that's something that you are looking at today. And of course, as individuals, while we do our part, it is also important to really understand for the different environmental issues that we face, or social issues actually, where is the role of businesses and governments, and how can we all hold one another accountable for it? So I just wanted to end with just a quick overview of what we are doing as part of PRCA. We are a volunteer-led group, small but really passionate, and what we are really trying to do is to work with work with businesses and brands from an agency perspective and in-house to come up with some regional guidelines on communications and sustainability, to really kind of find a roadmap for how we can be more responsible overall as an industry in what we say, and also how can we inform one another about the terms that we are using, and be more careful about how we are using it. And so if you guys are interested to find out more, please reach out to me. I think we are looking to collaborate a lot with communications professionals in the region, especially if this is something that an area that you are looking at. We have a consultation process underway, so I would love to connect. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me at spurwingcoms.com as well. Well, thank you so much. I know I've spoken, I kept looking at my watch. I really appreciate your time. I hope that this has been, informative. And as I mentioned, if there's one thing you take away is what can you do in one way or another. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, do you have questions for Janissa? It's a very good sharing. And Janissa, I want to share something personally from my experience. Whenever that I arrange an event in a meeting event with a hotel, and then some of the partner that I work with, they will prefer hotel that is not using plastic bottle as mineral water for the candidate. They will prefer hotel that is using a glass bottle, maybe even from the accommodation room. They will prefer glass bottle instead of plastic bottle. There was one of this criteria that's okay, choose a hotel that they are not using plastic bottle. So, there is also this part of the playing our role in sustainability, right? This is also part of it, yeah.
Yeah, without going on too long about it, sustainable events is a huge area where you can all make a difference. Hotels, it's not just about like plastic bottles or glass bottles, but sometimes even in the food sourcing that they do have, they actually have a lot of influence in the suppliers, the food, and they have, and even like their energy source. So I was sharing about scope 1, 2, and 3 as part of your business. For example, if I were to organize an event today, I think it would be, my scope 3 your scope 3 emissions would be to look at, the events that you're organizing as part of, your work. What is the carbon footprint through the suppliers that you work with, like the hotel, for example. So I think that's great, an example, especially since we're doing more events now.
Correct. So we are now, back to face-to-face meeting a lot, and then this is where we are back again in doing all that what we could. Yeah. All right. Any sharing from the floor with Janissa that you want to speak with her and do more sharing? And so nice of you, Kate, you have shared with us so much of information that It's in yeah, milk Kate. Kate, yeah, milk, I think.
I think you make a great point, Jenny, about the glass bottles in hotels. You know, it really does make a huge difference, the amount of plastic that's saved every year. And the notes that they put up about, you know, don't hang up your towel if you don't want it to be washed and things like that. But surely, I mean, I live in Singapore and I love living here. It's a fantastic place to be. But they could make so much more change, like the little things about plastic bags in supermarkets, which I know we've talked about ad nauseum. But surely it has to come from government, because the only way we actually will change, because it is too inconvenient for us all to do our bit, because we'll always find a way not to do something. We can always justify it. But if it comes from the top, then that's got to be the only way really that we're going to affect change. And by having people like Jan and yourself who are driving this forward, you know, with businesses and making them realize and to take note and to sit up and go, look, this isn't a nice to have, this is a must have, and it's number one on our priority. Not we want to do this. Oh, how are we going to make it sustainable? Surely the sustainable part has to be number one, and then we work around it.
Yeah. Sometimes doing our part, right? Like for me, you know, sometimes I will tell my kids to bring your own Tupperware, you know, to the takeaway. And honestly, sometimes we still, I forget my Tupperware.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? Or
Yeah.
I would love to know, just drop me a note, put it into the chat, you know, what you're taking away from this. And yeah, as I mentioned, I would love to say I have all the answers, but actually I get to say I don't have any. But I think we need people to come together to really see how we can address greenwashing at the various levels where we can. Okay. Well, I really appreciate the last 45 minutes you've set aside for this important message. Thanks for being a fantastic audience, and really great with the polls as well. Over to the WOMAG team to wrap up.
Yeah, sure. And I have a poll too. I mean, we have a poll too for you to take a poll on give us a feedback on, you know, we really love to know where you're from, you know, how you get to know us. And Fu Ying, maybe we also will display the QR code of our WOMAG, and please follow us in LinkedIn. And I like to also share with you that in the next coming September 14th coffee catch up, we will have Simone Bach, the Senior Vice President of Agricultural Solution Asia Pacific, BASF. She will share this. She has a huge passionate about sustainability, diversity, and inclusion. So Simone has still like a lively town hall and panel discussions. There will be another insightful catch up together with all of us again. And please invite your friends too. So I think this is the registration for our September coffee catch up, sustainable agriculture. Please join us again, and we will share together. So thanks for this morning. Thank you, Janissa. Thank you, everyone. And see everyone again soon. Bye. All right. Thank you. Thank you.